Oh,
Done.
relate. Relate. 1 minute.
Yay! Hi.
Hi.
Welcome everybody.
Whiz.
Hi.
3 seconds in. Where?
Alright, Zen and the Art of Classroom Management. We're going to talk about some specific things you can do in a classroom. I'm trying to make it very much action-oriented lesson, but yeah, there's a lot of why do we do this. So the last thing I'm going to get into is a little bit more of the why. Start out with what are the goals of every teacher? Number one, to ensure that every child learns every lesson. Number two, to have fun, right? I'm not anti-fun, I'm strict, but we should have fun in the classroom. This learning should be fun. There's no reason it shouldn't be. To ensure child safety. We are caregivers, not just teachers, but caregivers. Sorry, bit of tooth. We're caregivers, so we have to make sure that the children are safe, taken care of, or not put at risk. Okay? And number four, to instill good habits and social skills. This is not cultural colonialism. This is like, don't pick your nose, don't hit other kids, right? Classroom behavior. They have to learn basic social behavior patterns. You act this way in this place, that way in that place. Normal stuff. America doesn't really have one culture, so I couldn't give an example of like cultural colonialism except for movies and TV. I guess we're already colonizing everywhere with that. Okay, so the 3 zones of effective classroom management. I put the frame, overall mood and setting as number 1 because it's the most important, but I'm going to talk about it last because it's the most esoteric, a little bit more touchy-feely stuff. So we're going to talk about the class, which means whole classroom management, and the student, individual student management. So we really do tackle the larger class as a group, and then tackling individuals where we have maybe an issue or whatever, maybe it's just encouraging. So that's how I break it down. Frame, class, student. All right, a brief overview of child development. 8 through 12. Does anyone teach children younger than 8? Okay. So, basically 5 to 8, younger than 5, they're babies and not really aware that they're a human being at all. And that's, yeah, it really, it is, it's different. So 5 to 8, they have low motor coordination, short attention focus. They need to do a lot of physical play, a lot of physical interaction, test their bodies out. So if you're teaching younger kids, you have to change the subject, change the focus like every 5 minutes, and keep them active and moving around in the classroom. A lot of like physical interaction with objects and stuff for teaching. 8 to 12, they begin to develop a more accurate motor coordination and physical strength, enjoy testing out their bodies. You'll see a lot of racing, jumping, competitions between students at this time. You can take advantage of that. Begin to create their own identities separate from family units. Peer pressure and appearances become more important. Role-playing and future dreaming occur. Remember, this is 8 to 12. So 8, it's a little bit less. 12, it starts to get a lot more of that. They're like, who am I? They're starting to develop that identity with their friends. They have friends, and that's maybe more important than their mom and dad. They have an eagerness to build new skills. You'll see this a lot with like your seed classes versus your like sprout or over classes, where the young kids are like, oh, me, teacher, me. And then your sprout classes are like, oh, I want to answer, right? So that's, when they're raising their hand, they're enthusiastic, they're more enthusiastic. They want to build those skills. They require structure and guidance. Younger students, 12 and under, require a lot of structure. They don't have their own self-system created yet, and this is where I talked about developing social skills. It's really up to us, the parents, the community, to develop that personal structure that they'll use later in life, but they need us to guide them. And this is where a lot of the classroom rules and management comes in. We have to give them a structure. Once they have a structure, their life is easy. They just follow the structure. But if they don't know the structure, or if it's muddy, like not clear, then it's harder for them to follow. And younger students have a shorter attention focus, so you have to bring their attention back to class a lot. Like, I definitely had students who were in class and just like literally. Like, what are you looking at? Why are you even looking there? So I included things to bring attention back to whatever you're teaching. Okay, 12 to 18 for those teaching the older students. Puberty. Oh, thank you. Puberty. Interest in the opposite sex. Some physical changes occur in the body and can lead to distraction, embarrassment around people of the opposite sex, and lack of desire to participate because there are people of the opposite sex in the classroom. Begin the process of individuation, where they start to form their own identity totally separate from authority figures and parents. As you go into puberty, you really start to become, who am I? What am I going to be? And you have to create that separate identity from your family and authority figures like teachers and structure. So you'll get more rebellion at this stage, a little bit more from boys and girls, but as they enter middle school, it's about equal. So just be aware of that, and I would say you have to be less strict actually with those people, because you have to interact with them. I think it says you have an expectation of being treated as an adult, so you have to interact with them more on a peer level and less as an authority figure and structure giver level. So you kind of, when you're teaching your seed bed class, you're going to do it very differently than when you're teaching your sprout class, right? Oh, good. The meat and potatoes. So, classroom management for whole classrooms, directing attention. Call and response is when you say something and then they respond with verbally, right? Like, for example, I say, everybody, let's read. And they would say, let's read. You have to train them. It takes a few classes for them to learn the patterns. It says use voice rhythms. It makes it easier. Then you can just replace your target with whatever. So we don't, this is from Trade Public Schools, we don't have reading time. But I would say something like, if we're starting class, I might say, okay, everybody, look at TV. And they would say, TV, right? And then they're focused. They have to call and respond and bring us to focus. So look at, I use for what I want them to look at, either the whiteboard, TV, teacher, gray board, whatever. Look at blah, 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 right? If they do it well, good. And it might take a couple times. The other one, you can do, you say one word, they say the other one. Like, I say, be, they say, quiet, and I say, be, quiet. Right? So you start a little louder, they respond with quiet, loud, and then you bring it down, brings the class down quickly, simply, not like, all right, everybody, come on, let's go, quiet down, right? It's more effective when they're responding. The first time you say be, you'll have like 3 or 4 students say quiet. The next time, 7 or 8. And the third time, you've got the whole class. So, call and response. What are some other ones I use? Oh, sit down. Sit down. Right? They respond and they know that's what they're supposed to be doing at that time. If like you have a physical activity in the classroom. We've already kind of used the 3, 2, 1, go, or go, to get them to do something. Like if they're, especially if they're doing some sort of group participation thing where everyone's supposed to start at the same time, a countdown is helpful. I know I do a lot of games and like reading together and stuff, where I want everyone to be on the same pattern. So, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. If you're doing CTP, I always go 3, 2. So your voice isn't on that when you push the recording button and you do this. You push record. Oh yeah, voice, rhythms, and gestures. So students are very easily distracted. Typically, it's not possible in this school, but I like to keep empty desks and empty hands because they're like constantly pulling their focus away. So I have one where I go, empty desks, empty hands. Empty desks, empty hands. So if you're losing your voice or something, you can just like go and they know the tone, the rhythm, and the gestures. So you can really like train them to understand these gestures in class. I know when I was teaching middle school, I did lose my voice a lot, and I was able to run classes just by using the tone, rhythm, and the gestures to mostly communicate where I wanted the students to focus their attention. Still when I say like homework, cha-cha-cha, right? And it's just a little funny, and they know, okay, it's homework time, and they're all like, hey, cha-cha-cha. But it like brings their attention to that, they know what they need to do, and it's that rhythm. And then if you can't speak, or you're hearing through the there's the clap your hands one. I know this is popular in Korea, which would be like, okay, clap your hands 2 times. Clap your hands 3 times. Clap your hands 5 times. I'm not good at rhythm, okay? But you have to train them a couple times, and then they know the pattern, and just like with the be quiet, at first 2 or 3 students, then the whole class, then the class is quiet, and everybody's focused. I believe next is the countdown. So, together with the previous slide, you can use the countdown, right? So, if I say, sit down, my hand's up, I got my 5 fingers, I'm like, 5. They're all running around. Okay, sit down. 4. Good job. State the desired action so they know what you're counting down for, right? Be quiet. Open your textbook. Put away your books. Give me the crayons. So you say, all right, everybody, give me the crayons in 5. Then you wait. You don't actually want to reach 5. You just want to get them focused and doing the activity you want. Because the idea is if you reach 5, there's a consequence for not following the action. This is useful with ADD students, hyperactive students especially, and if a student's being disruptive and like you say, oh, give me the thing, and they're like, no. 5, 4, 3, I think 99% of the time they will give it to you. So the countdown is really useful. Instead of just saying do the thing, say it with the countdown, and the effectiveness just radically increases. So if you're like, okay, everybody be quiet, be quiet in, so really, really good. Oh yeah, visual representation, hold your hand up if you're like, okay, 5. It's not nearly as effective as, and one I use, once again you have to train them a couple times, but to get a class to quiet down if they're beginning class, or crazy for whatever reason, maybe it's CTP day, just, I'll even close my eyes so they know this is it. Right, I'm quiet, I'm still, I'm demonstrating the desired outcome. And yeah, the first time you have to like show them that this is what that symbol means, and then they got it, and they'll follow through. Okay. Full classroom management. This is plus and minus points. I can write on this, yes? Okay, so plus, minus. Just as simple as that. We don't use this at Apex currently. I have used this. I think it's effective. I always use classroom points and individual points. It works because you have a consequence or reward for the points, and the good students are going to watch the other students and make sure that everyone, so you have that like peer participation to help you keep the class in check. So, if like everyone participated great in something, you just be like, yay, good job, all right, I'm gonna give you 2. Or if you do the song, you can be like, wow, everyone's singing, I'll give you 2 plus points. We can watch a larva video. Yeah, I love larva, okay. Yeah. Okay, and the point you don't want to enforce consequences. You really want to avoid it. Positive reinforcement is far more effective than negative reinforcement. So we have to have them in place. Not everyone is motivated by positive reinforcement. Some people need a little extra motivation. But the point is, if like everyone's acting crazy and you do say give some minuses, or because no one's being quiet, you've done the countdown, they're still acting crazy. All right, guys, 5 minutes extra study time. Okay, let's try that again. Everybody quiet. 5. You know, and you can like. Sometimes I just go, like, oh, okay. Right, once they've got that down. And consequences don't have to be too severe. Like 5 minutes of they have to stay in the classroom and keep studying English. The way I look at it is, if you have to stop to control the class a lot, they're stealing your time. So you have to take some of their time back to make sure you finish the lesson. And reward time. Hopefully, if the class is going well and they've gotten points, that means you have those 5 extra minutes to show a short, funny video that they're gonna like. This is especially Laura from Mr. Bean's appropriate with the younger kids. I used sexy K-pop videos for my middle school boys, and it was really effective in motivating them. And it was questionably age appropriate, but by the Korean standards and whatever their age verification is for watching those videos, they could legally watch them. So that was my. I mean, it's really sexy videos. I don't know if you guys watch K-pop. And the girls, of course, wanted Big Bang or EXO or those. So that was. I had boy classes and girl classes separate, which made it easier to get a targeted reward. It was a special middle school. Okay, no lies. Later.
That was never heard of that.
Okay, I could do extra writing in the chunk book. Like instead of writing it 2 times, they have to do it 4 times, right? Whatever, something like that. I would consider that pretty minor. The other point is we should be handling our classroom management in a classroom and not be depending totally on the CSOs to come do it. We don't know what they're saying or doing, or if they're doing the right thing or saying the right thing or a good job. The best way to control your classroom is to do it yourself. In Korea, it's very different from American public schools. There are no consequences, and you're not allowed to do anything. So you really have to get creative in those consequences. It's only you. You're the only one who can do it. It has to happen in your classroom. Yeah. So these are little things you can do, small consequences that for particular students, especially the students that are the worst, really don't want to stay in clean. That's the last thing they want to do. They want to run out, play with their friends as quickly as possible. Okay. This is Larva. It's a really, really funny cartoon. If you don't know about it, check it out on YouTube. It's hilarious. It's fart jokes, not jokes. It's like really great for younger kids or me, whatever. It's exactly my sense of humor. Okay. Student management. This is individual students who may be distracting or a problem within a classroom. I know we all have had a few of those where, like for me, Zach, I had one class where he was not there. I was like, what is wrong with this class? It just doesn't feel right because it was so quiet. And when he's there, it's not. Utilize the STAR system to reward good behavior and participation. We know this one. There are many ways to do individual rewards. I like a system where I can reward particular activities such as speaking, reading, writing, so that they are encouraged to participate in different areas, and different students with different strengths can get different rewards. I don't think we can do that here, but I'm mentioning it for your future reference. I've kept a reward sheet in their books, and they can like check off in their boxes when they get points for that section. Try to avoid giving an X. I just spoke about this. You should give 3 warnings before the first X and count out the count to the student. Count out pointed out. So if like Zach is misbehaving, he's like talking without raising his hand. I'll say, Zach, classroom behavior, point out the rule that they're breaking. Okay, that's warning number 1. Right? And then I say the desired behavior, raise your hand before you're speaking, I'll call on you. Okay, and then he'll do it a second time, and I'll be like, that's number 2, classroom behavior, raise your hand. And then usually I don't have to get to number 3, right? Because we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's a habit loop. You take the behavior that exists, you give them an alternative behavior to replace that behavior and encourage that new alternative behavior. And that's how you change behavior over time. So now, instead of yelling at him, he's just got his hand up all class. It's a little bit quieter, everybody's just like, but it's still an improvement.
Would you give another 3 warnings for a second X?
No.
No.
Yeah, the second X, because then, yeah, they're moving towards consequences. So you really don't want to end up with 3 X's. And like, I hardly ever give X's. I think I might have reached 2 X's on a few occasions, and rarely, but I have called in CSOs once or twice. But yeah, you don't have to do a countdown every time. You want to avoid the first X. And then, after they get the 3 X's, then there's the consequence. So if you have a student who really needs a consequence, give them the X, have them do the consequence. Talk to them about why that happened. It depends on their language ability, how detailed you can go in. But that's why we have the rules. You should always point out the rule that they're breaking when you give them an X or a warning or anything. So there's a clear line between what you're doing and the reason, and you're not picking on them, which is what they'll think if you don't do that. And you're not playing favorites. There's an expectation. You're not doing it. Point it out. Always point out the expectation that they're breaking. Erase a star instead of giving an X if possible, right? So if the student has stars on the 3rd warning, don't give them an X, just erase a star, right? Just be like, all right, that's 1 star gone. If they don't have any stars, then you can do an X. It really depends on the class. Sometimes I do an X and don't erase the star, or I give them an X on the 2nd time if I've already erased a star and they're still misbehaving. Kind of up to you. But you get the idea. We're really don't want to reach the consequence level. It's more of the ominous threat of the possible consequence. Sometimes you have to do a consequence with a student at least 1 time before they are like, I don't want to do that again. Okay. Always point out the rule, yeah. Giving a warning or an X. Or guiding a student for anything, which is why I made a bunch of signs, because we'll get into it later, because that's about frame. So we'll talk about it a little later. Okay. How to utilize Apex Money to motivate and reward students. I know we've all had the money system as Fakakta. They didn't design it great, and then they didn't tell us anything about it, or if they did, I missed that. So my suggestion is to give $2 to the student with the most points and $1 to the 2nd place students, so whatever their star points are. I would not even accept $5 bills from the CSOs. I would accept only 1s or 2s at most, because they don't want to give us a lot of money. We have a bunch of students, so we have to give out rewards, but small rewards. Some people say they don't like the way the students are like, oh, I want money, I want money. But it does work. Physical rewards work. It just has to, if you have a question, all right, go ahead.
The younger one, I don't know, I think a lot of this applies to maybe CBIT 2 and up. CBIT 1 and rookies, some of the younger kids, really, if they didn't get $1 or something, someone would cry.
Yeah, so that gets to my next point, which is that the best reward system allows all students to get a token good towards a final reward. So every student should be leaving the class with some amount of reward. And that's another reason why our particular system now, I think, isn't that great. So, sorry, I'm not right. Star reward. What's the other option? Where's the mouse?
I think the space bar works.
Okay. So, why is it launching that application? I hate doing everything backwards. Okay. I see. Question when this isn't working. Okay. Utilize Apex Money to motivate and reward students. The best reward system allows all students to get a token. Should we use coins to ensure all students are getting rewarded? So this is something I'm going to tackle as the FM, is possibly making little coin circles so that maybe a quarter, and each quarter could be a star.
Well, like a stamp in their books or like on a piece of paper or something, they get a certain number of stamps. Then
Well,
they get
that's not within the system that we have. So the system we have is money. So I just want, but once again, this gets into framing, and it gets confusing or muddy if you have a lot of different things going on. So it's much better to stay within a system, so it's within that frame. So coins would be the best option. I know that they're likely to lose them or something, but if a student walks out with a star, or like 2 coins or 3 coins, they've got the reward. And all students should be rewarded if they've done work, which all students should be doing in our classes. And then they can eventually trade in those 4 25-cent coins for that $1 and get that prize. So I think that would be a better system, and I'll be working on that. It's nothing in place yet. But in the meantime, please use your Apex money. Don't take 5s. Use like small denominations. I think that works better. The other one for, you know, you got your stars and you want people to participate is when we exit the classroom, students should not be just like leaping out of their chairs as soon as the bell rings. You're the boss. They get up when you say it's okay. So make sure that's your frame in your classroom, and it gives you that opportunity to reward the students with the most stars. They get to stand up, push in their chairs, get their money, and make that line first. They're the first out, and students love to be the first out. So it's a good little extra prize you can throw in there. Okay. Power of Habits. Okay. Has anyone read the book, The Power of Habit? Yeah, it's a good book. So we can utilize this information in our classrooms, and so when correcting students' behavior, state the new habit that you wish the student to switch to. So this is why we don't say don't walk. We say don't run. We say walk. Which reminds me, I seem to be missing some making the rules. That's in framing. We'll get to that about making the rules and what kind of sentences use with that. Okay. So you state the new behavior. For me, it's nose picking. So I'm like, tissue for your nose, right? Here's your tissue. Go get a tissue. And then they slowly learn to ask for a tissue when their nose bothers them. So any type of behavior you're doing, you're like, so like with Zach, I don't say be quiet, I say raise your hand if you want to speak. So state that desired behavior, and they start, their trigger is wanting to speak, or whatever it is, and then you've given them a new behavior to replace their normal habit behavior. Then the reward is whatever it is, they get to talk if you pick them, or their nose doesn't irritate them anymore because they use the tissue. So you're instilling new behavior patterns, new habits. So the other one here, who I think most of us were at the most recent training, so we know about the letters of concern and the next one, I forget what it's called. The other one, the little paper about discipline, checklist. Yeah. So we should be using these at the end of class rather than calling in CSOs unless it's like some sort of big bad situation. So if you have a misbehaving student, they've gotten their 3 X's, you know what their problem is. You should have letters of concern printed out in your class because you need to give a written copy to the student for the parents. They probably won't turn it in, so we're also going to do it on LMS. And I was, are we on time? Okay, I was going to go through how to do this on LMS, but I don't think we have all that time. If we have time at the end, I'll go through it. But it's basically in your student management and what's the word for it? Issue. Student management issue, and you'll find it in there. And you have to have your class open, and then you'll be able to find the student, and you'll write it up, and the CSOs will translate it to Vietnamese and get it to the parents. So there's a section where it says notify somebody, and you'll see a bunch of names, a bunch of teachers, a bunch of Vietnamese names. If you don't know all the names of all the CSOs, it might be difficult to say who am I sending this to. According to Yan, send it to any CSO, so just choose 2 or 3 Vietnamese names.
But you do have the name of your CSO for that class on your on the schedule.
Please don't interrupt. Okay, just speaking out is not appropriate. You need to raise your hand, and I may or may not call on you. But thank you, that was good advice. Okay, yeah. So on the schedule it does say who your CSO is, so you could check that and then notify them. And there's a section for that, because they have to get a notification so that they know to go in, translate it to Vietnamese, and get it to the student. The other option is possibly inform a CSO personally after class to make sure that that information is communicated. I've only had to do this once with Bill. He's not as bad as we think, he's just stoned, apparently.
High?
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to react to being high.
Yeah, or I don't know what, but that's what he's told me. I think he's just a normal teenager. I have not seen any high risk behavior, and that comes from my experience with high risk students. So very bad behavior that I've seen, I don't see him on that level. That doesn't mean that he won't end up punching some kid aggressively because he's very big and he's a little bit of a bully, takes advantage of his size, but I really think that even though he doesn't want to be here, if you interact with him on a peer level, like discussed previously, for that age group, that you can kind of break through. And he's probably better off with a male teacher. Okay. Utilize the discipline checklist as a guide for writing a letter of concern on LMS. It'll tell you the different kinds of behavior expectations. And of course, you should have the discipline checklist in your classroom, so if you call on the CSO, you have it marked out. You don't have to spend all that time talking to the CSO instead of teaching your class. So it's a little bit more clear and quick. Both can be found in the student management folder on FTP. So if you need the letter of concern, there are like multiple versions depending on the behavior problem or the discipline checklist. You can print it out from FTP. I did not print any out for you because I know some have printed some haven't. I don't want to waste paper. So it's pretty easy to find. If you need help, ask me. I'm happy to help. But yeah, rather than calling in CSOs for behavior management, if it's a real problem, unless it's like, you know, two students fought and one got injured or something, like that's an emergency situation. Outside of those circumstances, use the letters of concern, do it after class. Try not to spend class time on that kind of, you know how it is, you're standing in the hallway calling CSO for 5 minutes. It's a real waste of class time. Yeah.
Sorry, I often call CSOs to my class just to explain some things to the kids.
That's totally appropriate.
So that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
you have-
that's
you have-
why I call them.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Yeah, if you have younger kids, that's a good use of CSOs.
Yeah, so like
is
for
to help with that
kids.
language explanation stuff. That's probably the most effective use of the CSOs, yeah.
Yeah, I do the same. So disciplining completely misbehaving child, like, can you explain to them why it's a bad behavior that they go?
Yeah, so I do use the CSOs quite a lot for discipline.
I know, I'm across the hall from you. But it's not for discipline, but for explanation.
Yeah.
It's more,
I would
yeah.
say. So really you should be using the CSOs like that first week you have the students, if they're
Yeah.
younger students, and then you should have your rules clearly listed and displayed in the classroom, and all you have to do is point at them, and we're about to get into that with the framing section. Okay. Individual consequences. So you can have individual consequences in your class if the student's really not reaching like LMS checklist like level, but they have some behavior problems. You can just, you know, what I do is if the student has the least stars or even got an X, they're the last one out of the class. That's it. They're back of the line. So that's a real big consequence for younger students. Or you can have them stay and help you clean. This is what I used in Korea because like you couldn't do anything, so I had cleaning time friends. They had to like help me clean the classroom. Or in that case, I had them come eat lunch with me instead of like going to play soccer with their friends. They're like, lunchtime friends. We get to hang out. We get to spend time together. No, teacher. I'm like, oh yeah, you got those 3 X's. Give you a chance. So it's like super mild, but it's within your realm of control, right? But you can get creative, like any little thing for that individual student that you know is like that distraction problem for your class. Because we have those students that we have to keep all students focused on the lesson, and distracting students destroy a whole class. So So that's why we have to like do whole classroom and individual. All right, my favorite part. Frame. So this is a little esoteric. I stole this term from the advertising world, advertising and marketing world. They use this a lot in grocery stores to make you buy things. But since I understood classroom management, I immediately realized that it's very applicable to how we do classroom management. So frames are the underlying understood rules, procedures, or expected behavior in a situation or place, such as when you walk into a restaurant, you wait for the hostess to sit you down, right? You've done it enough times, you know that's the expected behavior. If you don't see a hostess stand, you think, I don't know, should I sit myself? What's going on here, right? It's not a clear frame, right? Frame control, which is our job, is the process of controlling the assumptions and reactions of people through actively controlling the frame. It sounds complicated, but it's simple, right? Setting frame is basically just posting rules in your classroom, making sure they're clearly visible, right? Classroom is clean and neat, so when they come in, they know that's how it is. When they leave, it better be the same way. Students have a class start and end procedure, such as making a line for coming in, line up, or the fashion to exit. This is why I have the students make a line. There's a reason for it. The reason is I'm setting that frame. You're entering the classroom now. Classroom behavior is expected. So I'll even say that. Once they've made the line, I'll go and say, all right, it's class time. You guys ready for classroom behavior? Yes, teacher. All right, come in then. So it establishes that frame as they enter the classroom. That it's a switch over point from they just finished playing, now it's classroom. Use of effective body language and dress, which I'll talk about a little bit more, but yeah, the nicer you dress, the stronger your frame in that classroom. They're gonna treat a person who is dressed really sharp different than a person who's dressed really sloppy. So professional shirts, button-ups, dress like jackets, clean press, all that stuff, it does go a long way. I think it's more important maybe with older kids than younger kids, but that is part of your frame, dressing well. There is a reason we have a professional dress code, and I like being comfortable, but when it comes to working with children, a lot of times I'm suit and tie. It's a little hot here, but in Korea, suit and tie, because that just establishes that frame. This is a professional environment, right? Classroom is for study only is not a playpen, video room, or a crazy house. That is my frame for the classroom. You can come into the classroom if you want to study, and we can play in guided ways, but it's not like the playroom. And we're going to talk about this in a second, about the new playroom. Okay. Setting the rules. Rules should be simple. Rules should be broad. Have a few broad set rules that encompass many situations. So a rule like what's one I saw, like stay in your seat. It's really specific, and you only get 5 rules. Do you really want to spend one of your 5 rules on such a specific one when you can say use classroom behavior, and that covers like 17 different things? So I worked at a place called Extended Care in Austin, Texas. I had 2 weeks of classroom management training, CPR training, child safety training, and I'm not making any of this stuff up. None of this stuff comes from me. I've learned all this stuff over the years. These are their rules, which I really like. Respect space and property of others. That's great, right? So if kids are touching or hitting or taking somebody's stuff, it covers that. If they're touching your stuff, it covers that, right? So it's that no hitting, no fighting, no stealing, don't touch the teacher's stuff. It covers all that in a broad one. Use inside behavior or use classroom behavior. Right, that's also a frame. Like outside, you play soccer. Inside, you don't. And I'll even say to my students, "Am I your mother? No. Is this your house? No. Where are we? Classroom. Right. So we use classroom behavior. They're acknowledging that the behavior has to be different from their house when they're in their classroom. Stay in extended care boundaries. That's because we did a lot of outside playing and stuff, and we had to really make sure we didn't lose any kids. And follow directions from adults. So you can see they're like broad, cover many situations. I switched it up since coming to Asia because the language in there might be a little complicated, so I've had to simplify it a bit. Like now I have be nice, be clean, classroom behavior. Okay. So what is missing? No negative action statements like don'ts, right? We use positive action statements when making and enforcing the rules. Okay, the reason for this is kids here know a lot. They're acting crazy all the time, and mom and dad and their school teachers, and from what I understand, school teachers like beat them here and stuff too. So they're really shut down to no and don't. And it just feels better to give a positive statement. It feels better to them. So we try to avoid using the negative action statement like don't run, and we try and use a positive action statement. So think of the opposite of what you don't want them to do and state the desired action, like walking or raise your hand or use classroom behavior. So positive action statements are more effective, much more effective when redirecting behavior. The other one is with something like don't run. It's like saying don't think of a pink elephant. Immediately they're thinking of running. If you say walk, they're thinking of walking. So like you're actually creating that mental image in the brain of that thing that you want them to do. If you say run, you're not creating that mental image in their brain of the thing you want them to do. So that's one reason why it is going to be more effective to use those positive action statements. Post rules clearly visible in the classroom and review the rules at the beginning of class every day. You don't have to necessarily review the rules at the beginning of class every day. That's definitely an extended care thing that we did to remind them, here's the frame, these are the rules in this classroom. But it depends on the class. So if I have a new class, the first week, we're reviewing those rules at the beginning of class every day. If I have a class and they start to go crazy, I'm like, all right, time out, let's review the rules. Okay, rule number 1, 3, 2, 1, go. Be nice. Number 2, go. Be clean. All right? And they have to review those and you're reminding them, okay, is this your house? No. Where are we? Classroom? Right, so we're going to follow the English classroom rules. Okay? Okay, teacher. It brings it back around, right? Okay. Use praise and encouragement of good behavior instead of focusing only on unacceptable behavior. So if you have a student who's misbehaving, it's really important to spot them being good, right? Like if Zach is being quiet, I'm like, wow, Zach, good, you're being so quiet today, thank you, right? That's going to be much more effective than calling them out on the misbehavior. So sometimes it's hard to always find them doing the right thing, but I'll try to find them doing the right thing and verbally reward them with just like a yeah, or whatever, for that positive desired behavior that you want. Remind a child of behavior expectations daily by using clear positive statements. We just kind of talked about that, right? Redirecting behavior using positive statements, just talked about that. So using a brief supervised separation or timeout from the group. Okay, timeouts are meant to be used very rarely. This is a consequence from extended care, and it's useful for ADD children or hyperactive children as a consequence. And it really has to be short. Here it says no more than 1 minute per year child's age. I'd say like if a child's 7 or 8, don't give them 8 minutes of timeout. Like give them 1 to 3 minutes of timeout. I'd say year of age over 5, right? It doesn't have to be long, just long enough to where like they're separated, they know. So what I do is I like leave my door open and have them stand across from the door so I can supervise them, but they're out of the classroom. That's one option you have. Yeah, when you're praising work, don't use praise like, wow, you're so smart, because it makes it out of their control. It's much better to praise the work that they did. Wow, you worked so hard. I can see you're doing the work. That's really good. And use our kids, even if they don't get the perfect answer, you saw that they did the work. So if you say things that are out of their control, it doesn't help encourage them adjust behavior. But if you encourage work ethic behavior, in the long run, they'll feel emotionally rewarded for doing the work that gets them the results that will be helpful for them in life and will be helpful for us and our goals as teachers. Okay. Frame control. Be consistent and be constant. Okay? Rules should be consistently enforced towards all students by all teachers. Avoid showing favoritism. Be constant, enforce all the rules. So, yeah, we all have favorites and we all have problem students, and we might, want to let our favorite student kind of like do something. We know that we can trust them, so we're going to let them do this little thing, but we shouldn't do that. We can't do that because it muddies the frame. If your frame is not clear, then you can expect to have behavior problems. I think this is where a lot of behavior problems come through, is if we haven't set very, very clear frames, especially for younger children, which need like very obvious structure, then they're going to have problems. And you're like, why am I having problems in class? Well, it's because you're not setting a clear frame that's easy for young people to understand. Okay, I'm going to talk about this briefly because it's also a very big subject. Body language. Frame, body language, subcommunication. Body language is the key to control. Body language is responsible for 55% of our communication when we're talking, okay? So that means only 45% is what you're saying and how you're saying it. In very simple terms, use power body language and avoid weak body language. I'm just going to do some demonstrations here. So power body language is broad, out, open, tall, right? And weak body language would be like shoulders rolled in, a little down, like that. For example, when you're trying to get a student to like come in, sit down, be quiet, you're like, okay guys, come on in, come in, let's go. Let's just nod the other side. All right, class, go, 5, 4, 3. You can feel that difference. So think about teaching as kind of an acting job too. Because I know we have some resistance because we're like, that's not natural to me. Well, if the natural you isn't getting the results that you want, just adjust a little bit. And it's not unnatural to you, be yourself, but just add these little things that are going to help you along the way. So try to remember like standing up straight, open, a little bit, that's more of like a power stance. And raise your hands up when you're doing the countdown, not down here. Okay, and then another one is if you're talking to young students, go down to their level. Talk to them one-on-one. That's another way, effective use of body language, right? You're saying, I'm on your level, I'm here with you, right? Rather than towering over them in kind of an intimidating way. If anyone wants to talk to me more about body language at some other time or after this, I'm more than happy to, but I just wanted to like touch on that, something you should be considering as you're doing the class. Okay, whew, almost done, almost there. So, the new Apex Kim Leon frame. We're going to have a play zone. The play zone, where kids are free to play and act crazy.